Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's amen. Say good morning, darling.
Good morning, darlings. Happy Holy Tuesday. Well, there isn't really a Holy Tuesday, but I made that up because yesterday had to have been Holy Monday because I was preaching to Lon all day yesterday. And what was he saying?
I was saying, yeah, amen. That's right. That's right. Teach on
Because
that.
I haven't been able to think about anything but God because the whole world must be thinking that.
That's
And
right.
next week, too, we have so in that Holy Week.
That's
this
right.
Weekend. Okay.
Yes.
It's a big, long, extra long Holy Week for everybody.
Yes.
So, blessings to all of you.
Oh, thank you, dear. We all thank you, dear. Okay. Get me some treats, please, to make sweeten my life. Mm-hmm. Yes, right.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, honey.
Amen.
Amen.
Hi. Okay. All right. Well, obviously, we're starting a little bit late this morning. And, I've got to apologize in advance because what I did yesterday and what I'm going to do today and tomorrow is try as best I can to insert Crowley's comments that he sort of threw together concerning certain verses and his memory of what was going on in his mind as he was being dictated the three chapters of the Book of the Law on April 8th, 9th, and 10th. And no matter how I do it, ideally, and I think once at Monday night class, one person actually read through each verse of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then I would interrupt them to read Crowley's comment about what that particular, his comment on that particular verse. Now remember, this is from the Equinox of the Gods. Here is an old Falcon Press, beautiful Falcon Press edition. Was originally written in 1936, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is Crowley, 1936 Crowley, commenting on a very weird, magical, subjective, vaporous, visionary, audible, clairaudient experience from 1904. And he went on to write other commentaries on the Book of the Law that you can find in The Law is for All and in the magical and philosophical commentaries of the Book of the Law. And you may think, oh boy, Crowley's commentary. Now I'll finally understand what the Book of the Law is all about. All my questions will be answered. No, they won't. Crowley himself said, I'm not sure about this part, and, this might mean this and this might mean that. It really is up to you at your particular level of and capacity to understand and to interpret by your own wisdom as life and the years go by. But anyway, so I've posted, day before yesterday, I posted my YouTube reading of the chapter 1, and yesterday I posted my YouTube reading of chapter 2. So I'm not going to completely reread chapter 2, but just those areas that Crowley is commenting on, which is exactly what he does here in the Equinox of the Gods. What I have to do is read those sections directly from the text. So here's how he starts off. Chapter 2, Hadith, and he spells it Hadith here. Hadith himself is evidently speaking from the start. The remarks are general. And in verse 5, I'm spoken of in the third person. So I'm going to read up to 5. Knew the hiding of Hadith. Now I got to digress long enough to remind you that chapter 1, Nuit's chapter, starts off, had the manifestation of Nuit. So here's had the manifestation of Nuit, starts off Nuit's chapter, and knew the hiding of Hadith starts off Hadith's chapter. Come, all ye, and learn the secret that hath not yet been revealed. I, Hadith, am the complement of Nu, my bride. I am not extended, and Kabs is the name of my house. In the sphere I am everywhere the center, as she, the circumference, is nowhere found. Yet she shall be known, and I never. So, in verse 5, I am spoken of in the third person. Here's verse 5. Behold, the rituals of the old time are black. Let the evil ones be cast away. Let the good ones be purged by the prophet. Then shall this knowledge go aright. Now, it says after verse 9, he notices my vehement objections to writing statements to which my conscious self was obstinately opposed. Now I'm going to continue reading down to verse 9 so you can see what it is that the Hadith is noticing. Behold, the rituals of the old time are black. Okay. I am the flame that burns. Well, I'll finish that off. I don't want to screw with the book of the law. Behold, the rituals of the old time are black. Let the evil ones be cast away. Let the good ones be purged by the prophet. Then shall this knowledge go aright. I am the flame that burns in every heart of man and in the core of every star. I am life and the giver of life, yet therefore is the knowledge of me the knowledge of death. I am the magician and the exorcist. I am the axle of the wheel and the cube in the circle. Come unto me is a very foolish word, for it is I that go. Who worshipped Haru Pa Krath have worshipped me ill, for I am the worshipper. And here's 9. Remember all ye that existence is pure joy, that all the sorrows are but as shadows, they pass and are done, but there is that which remains. Now in 1904, if we're kind of familiar with the timeline of Crowley's spiritual career, he was pretty much, or he considered himself, according to his light, he considered himself a Buddhist. And the first trance of the Buddha, is the trance of sorrow. And so Crowley's thinking, no, you're not going to get anywhere until you realize that everything is sorrow, and that you're not going to go anywhere in this sorrowful state until the source of this sorrow is attachment, and you can get rid of that attachment. If you're going to be free of that sorrow, you're going to have to be free of attachment, etc., etc., etc. So he was all is sorrow kind of guy. And all of a sudden, this praetor human intelligence is telling him that all is, let's see, remember all ye that existence is pure joy, that all the sorrows are but as shadows, they pass and are done, but there is that which remains. So he notices my vehement objections to writing statements to which my conscious self was obstinately opposed. And in verse 10, he addressed to me, he notes that fact. Here's verse 10. O prophet, thou hast ill will to learn this writing. I see thee hate the hand and the pen, but I am stronger. Okay. Because of me in thee, which thou knowest not. For why? Because thou wast the knower and me. Now, this interruption seems to have added excitement to the discourse. For verse 14 is violent. Here's 14. Now let there be a veiling of this shrine. Now let the light devour men and eat them up with blindness. Excuse me. Here he says, verse 15 and 16, offer a riddle, while verse 17 is sort of a parody of poetry. For I am perfect, here's 15, for I am perfect being not, and my number is 9 by the fools. But with the just I am 8 and 1 and 8, which is vital, for I am none indeed. The empress and the king are not of me, for there is a further secret. I am the empress and the hierophant. Thus 11, as my bride is 11. Now verse 17 here that he says is a sort of parody of poetry. Verse 7 looks like a poetry verse in the same way as the paraphrase from the front and back of the stele that are inserted in the text. But even though it looks like one of those stele quotes, it's not. It's a little poem that Crowley sticks in here, and this was well, I'd have to actually see the facsimile to see if that was something that he had heard or something that he inserted. So excuse me for a second. Let's see how it starts. You know, I may not be able to find it in a timely manner. Yeah, I'm not, so. But here it is, a certain parody, he calls it. Hear me, ye people of Sion, the sorrows of pain and regret are left to the dead and the dying, that the folk that not know me as yet. Okay. Verse 18 continues his attack on my conscious mind. In verse 15 through 18, the style is complicated, brutal, sneering, and jeering. I feel the whole passage as a contemptuous beating down of the resistance of my mind. In verse 19, he returns to the exalted style, all the way to verse 52. The passage seems to be addressed to what he calls his chosen, or his people, though it's not explained exactly what he means by the words. So we're going to skip over that verse 19 through 52. And of course, you're encouraged to read that yourself or listen to my recording of it. And we're going to pick up at verse 52, because that's where his comments are. Okay. I must have objected to something in verse 52. Here's what it is. There is a veil. That veil is black. It is the veil of a modest woman. It is the veil of sorrow and the pall of death. This is none of me. Tear down that lying spectre of the centuries. Veil not your vices in virtuous words. These vices are of my service. Do ye well, and I will reward you here and hereafter. So he must have objected mentally to that. For in verse 53, the next one, is directed to encourage me personally as to having transmitted this message. Fear not, O prophet, when these words are said. Thou shalt not be sorry. Thou art emphatically my chosen, and blessed are the eyes that thou shalt look upon with gladness. But I will hide thee in a mask of sorrow. They that see thee shall fear thou art fallen. But I lift thee up. For verse 53 is directed to encourage me personally as to having transmitted this message. Now the next one, 54, deals with another point as to the intelligibility of the message. And here's that. Nor shall they who cry aloud their folly that thou meanest not avail. Thou shalt reveal it. Thou availest. They are the slaves of because. They are not of me. The stops as thou wilt, the letters, change them not in style or value. Now, in verse 55, the next one here, verse 55 instructed me to obtain the English Kabbalah. It made me incredulous, as the task seemed an impossible one, and probably his perception of this criticism inspired verse 56, though ye mockers, quote, applies evidently to my enemies, referred to in 54. So here's verse 55. Thou shalt obtain the order and value of the English alphabet. Thou shalt find new symbols to attribute them unto. I'll continue because he talks about, begone, ye mockers, even though ye laugh in my honor, ye shall laugh not long. Then, when ye are sad, know that I have forsaken you. Okay, 57 brings us back to the subject begun in 51, or in verse 21. And let's just refer to verse 21. And that's a wild and crazy. We have nothing with the outcast and the unfit. Let them die in their misery, for they feel not. Compassion is the vice of kings. Stamp down the wretched and the weak. This is the law of the strong. This is our law and the joy of the world. Think not, O king, upon that lie that thou must die. Verily thou shalt not die, but live. Now let it be understood, if the body of the king dissolve, he shall remain in pure ecstasy forever. Nuit, hadit, rahur kuit. The sun, strength and sight, light. These are for the servants of the star and the snake. Okay. So verse 57, which we're about to read, brings us back to the subject begun in verse 21. It is a quotation from the Apocalypse, verbatim, and it is probably suggested by the matter of verse 56. So let's just read 57. He that is righteous shall be righteous still. He that is filthy shall be filthy still. There is no real change in the essence of anything, however. Its combinations vary. Now, verses 58 and 260 include or conclude the passage. So here is 58 and 6 through 60. Yea, deem not of change, ye shall be as ye are, and not other. For the kings of the earth shall be kings forever. The slaves shall serve. There is none that shall be cast down or lifted up. All is ever as it was. Yet there are masked ones, my servants. It may be that yonder beggar is a king. A king may choose his garment as he will. There is no certain test. But a beggar cannot hide his poverty. Beware, therefore, love all, lest perchance is a king concealed. Say you so? Fool, if he be a king, thou canst not hurt him. Therefore strike hard and low, and to hell with them. Master. Okay, starting with verse 61, the next one. The address is now strictly personal. During all this time, Hadit had been breaking down my resistance with his violently expressed and varied phrases. As a result of this, I attained to a trance that is described from verses 61 through 68. Now, if you can imagine that Crowley had demanded from all of this supernatural contact, he demanded for his cooperation in this magical operation that he receive samadhi. And if you can picture in your mind his sort of combative dictation up to this point, especially with him rebelling against some of these, the same thing you and I are rebelling against when we first hear this and say, gee, this is wild stuff. No, it's not part of my spiritual worldview. And he fights back and forth and back and forth, and all of a sudden, after all of this, he's almost psychically exhausted. And in that blissful, I guess, exhaustion, he starts to have a very subjective, he falls into a trance himself. And who's dictating this is describing what's going on. You can see this as an HBO plus a dramatic scene. He's fighting at the table, this stuff being dictated, and all of a sudden he goes, boom, and you hear sitar music, ambient sitar music, and he goes, there is a light before thine eyes, O prophet, a light undesired, most desirable. I am uplifted in thine heart, and the kisses of the stars rain hard upon thy body. Thou art exhaust in a voluptuous fullness of inspiration, the inspiration. The expiration is sweeter than death, more rapid and laughterful than the caress of hell's own worm. Oh, thou art overcome, we are upon thee, our delight is all over thee. Hail, hail, prophet of Nu, prophet of Had, prophet of Rahurku. Now rejoice, now come in our splendor and rapture, come in our passionate peace, and write sweet words for the king. I am the Master, and thou art the holy chosen one. Write and find ecstasy in writing. Work and be our bed in working. Thrill with the joy of life and death. Ah, thy death shall be lovely. Whoso seeth it shall be glad. Thy death shall be the seal of the promise of our age-long love. Come, lift up thine heart and rejoice. We are one, we are none. Hold, hold, bear up in thy rapture. Fall not in the swoon of the excellent kisses. Harder, hold up thyself. Lift thine head. Breathe not so deep. Die. Whoa. Verse 69 is the return to consciousness of myself. What do I feel? Is the word exhausted? It was a sort of gasping question, as a man coming out of ether might ask, where am I? I think this is the one passage in the whole book which was not spoken by Aiwass. And I ought to say that these verses, 63 through 68, were written without conscious hearing it at all. Verse 70 does not deign to reply to my question, but points out the way to manage life. It continues to verse 74. So here it is. There is help and hope in other spells. Wisdom says, be strong. Then canst thou bear more joy. Be not animal. Refine thy rapture. If thou drink, drink by the 98 rules of art. If thou love, exceed by delicacy. And if thou do aught joyous, let there be subtlety therein. But exceed. Strive ever to more. And if thou art truly mine, and doubt it not, and if thou art ever joyous, death is the crown of all. Death. Death, thou shalt long for death. Death is forbidden, O man, unto thee. The length of thy longing shall be the strength of its glory. He that lives long and desires death much is ever the king among the kings. Okay. 75. Verse 75 abruptly changes the subject. Interpolating the riddle of verse 76 with its prophecy. Now we'll get to that riddle in a second. This verse is addressed to me personally and continues to the end of 78 to mingle lyrical eloquence with literal and numerical puzzles. I listen to the numbers and the words. Notice he says numbers in the words and not numbers in the letters. I listen to the numbers and the words. 4, 6, 3, 8, ABK, 2, 4, ALGMOR, 3, YX, 2, 24, 89, RPSTOVAL. What meaneth this, O prophet? Thou knowest not, nor shalt thou know ever. There cometh one to follow thee, he shall expound it. But remember, O chosen one, to be me, to follow the love of new in the starlit heaven, to look forth upon men and tell them this glad word. Be thou proud and mighty among men. Lift up thyself, for there is none like unto thee among men or among gods. Lift up thyself, O my prophet, thy stature shall surpass the stars. They shall worship thy name, foursquare, mystic, wonderful, the number of the man, and the number of the name of thy house. 4:18. The ending of the hiding of Hadith and blessing and worship to the prophet of the lovely star. This verse 79 is a statement of Iwas that the end of the chapter has come, and to this he adds his personal compliment to myself. Well, I don't know if you're still going or if I'm still recording, but I hope so, because that was fun for me. Anyway, tomorrow should be exciting because we're going to do the same thing with chapter 3, and we'll see what he had to say about chapter 3 in 1936 as Holy Week continues. So, until then, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.